Last time on the Amazing Spider-Man 2 spoiler review, a dramatic breakup for no reason, terrible unfitting music, our heroes broken. One thing's for sure, the worst is yet to come.
So, that was fun. So anyway, after the Times Square incident, Electro is eventually caught. And we are treated to one of the most cartoony and ridiculous characters in the film, with Dr. Kafka, who proceeds to torture Electro with electricity.
I am Dr. Kafka, and I am cliche with German engineering with Wiener Schnitzel and Pfannkuchen and Du hast.
Frau Blucher. But at least the movie has the good sense to point out how stupid its own side quest mission is with this whole thing. When Electro basically incredulously calls out Kafka on him storing him in a facility that is run on electricity. What is for experimental purposes? He wants to know how far he can be pushed! Anyway, so ultimately, no shit, once again, Electro literally teams up with Harry Osborn because Harry shouts at him, "I need you. I know what it's like to be thrown away.
Oh.
I need you." Subtle!
Oh, the pain. The hurt.
Truly. And so, they go off and they do their villainry thing, and so Electro upgrades and gives himself a suit for no reason, because, you can't have him looking like Dr. Manhattan, I get it, kitties and the blue dong and all that. So, but for no reason, Electro keeps this little monitor on the side of his head that lets the audience know when he's overloaded. For no reason. This is the thing that Kafka put on his head to run these experiments on him to see, okay, well, how much electricity can he stand before he dies? And it's basically, in the end, it's only there to let us, the dumb audience members, know that, oh, he's dead for realsies now. The truly saddest part about the Electro character is not only feeling bad for Jamie Foxx for trying so hard in this, but given the right writing and story, Electro really could have been a truly tragic character. This is a huge missed opportunity on the part of the filmmakers. And ultimately, Harry and Electro were actually intended to be sympathetic, but ultimately they both just ended up being villainous villains who reveled in their villainry. So you move on to our second villain of the week, Harry Osborn, who eventually becomes a Green Goblin. And straight out of the gate, Harry's conversation with his dad is Exposition Playhouse Presents here, where we learn Norman is a terrible person and Harry was sent to a boarding school at the age of 10 and how his dad sent him a bottle of scotch for his 16th birthday and he's just such a bad person and you abandoned me, you left me, Dad, you left me. I really enjoyed the touch where, because Norman Osborn's name had not been implicitly spoken in the film, Harry's character had to make sure to tell the audience that you signed the card with compliments, Norman Osborn. Because we wouldn't have known it was our Norman Osborn without him telling us that, because we're stupid! And during this conversation, Harry is given the news that he has inherited his father's genetic illness. And so his father gives him this device, implying that it has info on it to help combat the illness. But the only problem is he dies before going into detail on what's in it and how to use it. And the only reason we believe Harry didn't know how to use it is because later on in the film, Harry accidentally finds out what the information is. He literally is looking at the device. He hasn't done anything with it. He's looking at it kind of like he's perplexed. And he drops it on this table, and all of this information spews out onto it. And so, do you mean to tell me that if he accidentally didn't drop the device, on the magical computer table, he never would have found out all about the suits and all about Oscorp's experiments with the spiders and how it was trying to come up with this cure to save his dad and his magical mystery, really complicated to pronounce illness.
That was so bad.
So soon after, we learn that Norman Osborn dies, and we have this scene where we see that Peter finds out about it, and we're like, why does he seem like he cares? And we are given our second exposition dump between Harry and Peter, where we learn that they were besties 10 years ago when they were kids, and they continue to have a couple of scenes where we see that, oh, you know, we were chums at one point and this and that, and it's like, again,
What the fuck, man? The previous movie didn't say anything. Nothing about Peter Parker, little itty bitty Peter Parker, growing up with a childhood bestie named Harry. The previous movie said none of this.
it was literally Peter saying, well, you were so there for me when my parents disappeared. And something I noticed really with Harry's character was how inconsistent he seemed to have been written, because literally 1 minute you're feeling really legitimately bad for this guy, and even with the whole shit with Oscorp being really corrupt internally and pinning things on other people and completely erasing data on certain people and disavowing knowledge, Harry doesn't know any of this is going on, and so when he finds out about this, he gets kicked out of the company. But he literally goes from sympathetic to tonal shift, and you see this in the scene where Harry figures out that Spider-Man was the result of Oscorp's experiments. He finds out also that even though the experiments have been destroyed, because Spider-Man was the result of these experiments, his blood may be the cure to curing Harry in his illness. So Harry assumes that because Peter has taken photos in the past of Spider-Man, that, well, Peter, you must know who Spider-Man is.
Obviously.
Of course. So you gotta get in contact with him. Pete, you gotta get him. I need his blood. I need his blood. And so when Peter reminds Harry what happened with Dr. Connors, who became the Lizard through these experiments, Harry goes, he was weak. So again, despite having the sympathetic scene, with that one line, Harry is now. So then, right after that, we have this awkward scene where, Peter has decided against letting him have his blood, and he dresses up as Spider-Man, goes up to Harry's apartment and says, this isn't a good idea, I'm sorry. And of course, Harry gets really pissed off. Spider-Man leaves. The scene ends with Harry throwing a temper tantrum, yelling,
You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
So in the clusterfuck of all of the many stories and characters that are going on through all of this, the studio was trying to set up the character of Felicia Hardy, who would later become Black Cat if the universe had had its way. And she is basically Harry's assistant. She's been working at Oscorp this whole time. At one point, when all hope is lost for Harry, she comes up to him and tells him that she has magically overheard that there's another source of the Spider-Man human DNA from the experiments that was left over from all of this, because they didn't destroy all the samples. And so knowing this, he starts looking through his little disc and he finds these files on Electro, and again we get the exposition that Harry now knows that Electro hates Spider-Man. Well, Harry's like, well, I hate Spider-Man too, so let's go do a team up, right? So he goes to the facility where Electro is being experimented on and he's being held. And so he goes there to spring them out, essentially. They team up and they perform their villainry. So eventually, Harry is led to the underground facility, and like a dumbass, he just flat out injects this experimental shit into him, not doing any testing, not figuring out, is this shit gonna kill me faster or whatever, and shockingly, it has an adverse and very physical effect on him. So then this chamber with what would become the Green Goblin suit magically opens up for no reason, and he crawls over into it. The soundtrack here is where it's really good, by the way. This is an unfortunate sequence where the music is better than the scene itself actually is. So he crawls to the suit, and he climbs inside. The suit starts to heal him. It says, healing mode.
And then he turned into a vampire.
And with this, we are now given yet another cartoon villainous performance where Harry has been reduced to, I'm the Green Goblin, I hate you, Spider-Man, I'm gonna kill your girlfriend, meh. So, as if Peter and Gwen's relationship bullshit weren't enough to be following in this film. As if Harry's struggle to fight his disease and then turn into the Green Goblin weren't enough, and as if Electro running rampant through the city wasn't enough, and as if the obligatory teaming up of Electro and the Green Goblin weren't enough, we are given, at the hour mark, another flipping subplot to follow. So, Peter's parents, they were touched upon briefly in the first movie, and in this movie it was more of to set up this, again, as I stated earlier, this feeling of abandonment that Peter had, because he never found out what happened to his parents. He was only left with this briefcase that his dad had, and he looked at it a few times, and in this one he keeps it in his closet, and he rummaged through some of it a couple of times, and he was never able to really find anything on it, just a calculator and some papers and a piece of paper, a memo pad with the name Roosevelt at a certain time written on it. Okay, fine. Again, I counter to the filmmakers. This was not touched upon really at all in the first Amazing Spider-Man, and you could easily have touched on this and have had this resolution by the end of the first movie. So through all of this muck, Peter is eventually told by his Aunt May, who was told by the FBI when Peter was very young, that Richard and Mary were traitors who fled for the money that their stolen information from Oscorp would bring. So after hearing this, Peter is briefly disillusioned, and the search kind of gets dropped so we can explore further scenes, but eventually he comes right back to it. He's picked up his dad's calculator and he breaks it up against the wall. And so this leads him to magically find the subway tokens that are hidden in this calculator which he found in his dad's briefcase, of course. This leads to him discovering the forgotten underground Roosevelt station. He uses the magic tokens that he found in his dad's broken calculator, activates the secret lair, finds his dad's message within this secret lair. The message that he sent to no one in particular because nobody knew about this secret lair. So basically, he did this act which stood a chance of no one ever finding it. And, you know, it's not like Oscorp knew about this secret underground lair. Why the fuck didn't his parents just hide in Roosevelt?
This is so stupid, okay? So the parents fought the assassin and died, okay? They risked their lives and fought an assassin, a hitman, to kill them on an airplane.
Who was so dumb that he killed the pilot of the airplane, walked in front of Richard Parker to wash the blood off of his hands.
Right in front of them. So again, sacrificing their lives to send information to a secret lair that nobody knew existed. The chances of Peter Parker just happened to throw a fucking calculator on the ground to reveal some fucking tokens, so he knew where to take the tokens and put it in the slot and to find the secret lair.
You know, maybe we're being too hard on this.
You think?
You must have known a couple of people that have seen this movie. Do you know what any of them thought about it?
Josh?
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a terrible movie. It was probably the worst thing out of New York since Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump's hair played one of the villains in the movie.
I'm coming for you, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know, truth really is more frightening than fiction. But yeah, that's pretty much the villainry we got in this movie.
I want more, man. Fat Ninja, let us know what you think.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 needs something very important. More Japanese. Japan, #1. And could bring something very, very excellent. Power Ranger Megazord Leopardon is what Amazing Spider-Man 2 needed to be excellent movie. Otherwise, no good Amazing Spider-Man 2.
You mean to tell me we live in a world where Super Megazord Spider-Man is a thing that exists and we were watching Amazing Spider-Man 2?
Kelly, what's up, man? Let us know what's going on. What'd you think of it?
You know what, man? Fuck Spider-Man.
Damn, Kelly. But come on, Kelly. What about there's hope out there for the character of Spider-Man. Come on, Marvel, Sony are coming together to make the deal. They're going to reboot Spider-Man. Come on. There's hope, right?
Fuck the reboot. Spider-Man, I'm done.
Fuck Spider-Man, yeah!
Fuck
Yeah,
in their
fuck
fucking
this shit.
expanded universe.
Yeah, Sinister
Fuck
Six
it.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Fuck your magic subway tokens. Fuck your magic plot contrivances. Fuck your cliches. Fuck this. Fuck that. Fuck it all. You know why? Because if you don't care, we're not gonna care. Fucking multi-plot movies just don't work that way. You know?
Sinister Six movie. Sinister Six movie.
And stuff. And Jamie, you must have seen Amazing Spider-Man 2. What are your thoughts, Jamie? Nerd rage with us.
What do I think of the Amazing Spider-Man 2? Meh.
Yeah. Huh?
I mean, it's not bad. It's just not as good as the other films in the franchise. For example, the original Spider-Man films are much better, but Spider-Man 3 was terrible. So at least Amazing Spider-Man 2 was better than number 3 of the original trilogy. But that said, it's not a great film. It's overlong, it's too much padding, and it's just a bit boring, really. It's a shame. Wasted opportunity.
Well, okay, that was a very logical and rational point in the movie. Thank you, Jamie.
Now, if you want to talk about bad movies, I mean, there's many. There's Fantastic Four. Either version is bad. There's I, Frankenstein. But if you want to know the one film that ticks me off, is Home Alone 4. If you've ever seen this monstrosity, it is awful. It is just goddamn awful. It's a complete pile of shit. It is the biggest pile of fuckity fuck shit I've ever seen. And I would never, ever watch it again.
You know, that was probably the calmest, most civilized nerd rant I've ever heard. We should try to be more like Jamie. You know, there were glaring flaws throughout, and a lot of this, it chalks it up to behind the scenes and studio interference in the way that, unlike Spider-Man 3, where the studio forced a director to add something he didn't want, I think the director was kind of on board in wanting to help create this expanded universe. And they tried really hard. You know, you got the end scene where Harry's in jail and he is approached by a man in black who's discussing with him the candidates to fill the remaining suits. And this, of course, is referencing the Sinister Six that Sony had very well planned in advance. And this all demonstrated how desperately Sony was trying to answer to Marvel with their own universe instead of focusing on one film, one story at a time. And one of the biggest issues was there was so much going on. It was nearly impossible to invest in any of the stories we were given, with the lack of any main one plot, but rather several self-important subplots. It was almost impossible to focus on any one thing, and throughout the film, we transitioned from scene to scene, each focusing on the different subplots presented. And everything suffered for it. The tone suffered for it. The characters suffered for it. The film itself, where it looked pretty competent, it's not like the action scenes were filmed poorly. Spider-Man flying throughout the city was actually very nice. You can tell that they utilized the 3D to the best of their abilities, and Spider-Man flying on his web was probably one of the best looking parts of the film. And through all of the subplots and the scenes that we were presented with, I'm pretty sure that there were several scenes that still made it to the cutting room floor. And who knows how much more bloated this already 2-hour film could have been. And the saddest thing is, it's not as if this film flopped. And much in the case of Spider-Man 3, it was financially a success, but the critics and the fans just weren't having it anymore. Sony Columbia really had their eyes on a more faraway prize. The film's story and narrative suffered greatly for their desire to expand further than they needed to. They really needed to get all of their eggs in one basket before they started splintering off and creating all of this. So in the long run, is this the worst comic book film we've seen out there? No. It still has certain elements that made it charming from the Amazing Spider-Man, but with the splintered plots running everywhere and them trying desperately to fit them in together, it was a jigsaw puzzle whose pieces simply would not fit. Sony paid very dearly for this. They had to eventually come to an agreement with Marvel Studios. The franchise already has been rebooted, a new actor has been cast, and I can't even do that anymore. I think in terms of where he will be centered in the Marvel Universe, he's going to do fine on his own. Don't you dare give us another fucking origin story. We know Spider-Man's origin story. Don't do it next year.
It's really sad. It is really sad. Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield, all the actors, they all deserve way better than this. And this movie it was just a mess. Now, if you're just watching it, sitting down, and you're not really thinking, too hard about what's going on, it could pass the time. It could be a good rental. It was just a complete mess. Less is more. So we give The Amazing Spider-Man 2 2.1 out of 5 stars. That's it for today's episode. I'm sure all of you out there have already seen this movie, so we're still curious what you guys think. Let us know in the comments below. So we want to give a little shout out and thanks to our special guests in this episode, Jamie, Josh, the feature stand-up comedian star, that's right, and Hollywood writer, and Kelly and Fat Ninja. And most of all, we want to thank you guys out there for watching. You guys rock, and we see you guys next time. But before that, Kelly, any last words?
Fuck Spider-Man.
Yeah, fuck Spider-Man, man. Fuck this movie, man.
Subway Underground tokens! Magic Subway Underground bullshit!
Share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe.
So Electro upgrades and gives himself a suit for no reason, because you can't have him looking like Dr. Manhattan. I get it, Kitty's the blue dong and all that. And it's Jamie Foxx, so oh.
I'll take